Let's go ahead and get started. Once again, I apologize for the technical problems, but we'll get this posted to Facebook after we're done here. You know, obviously it's challenging times, not just not technology-wise, but these are unprecedented times, and I want to acknowledge all the people that we're going to have on here tonight. We are expecting Mike Morrell to be on. Jay's here somewhere, I think, right? Yeah.
Well, Mike is on.
Let's kind of talk about who we are and what we do, because a lot of people don't really know who we are yet that might be attending. And San Bernardino County Gun Owners is a political organization. It's important to remember that. We have a strong, proven infrastructure that focuses on expanding and restoring our Second Amendment rights. And the way we do that is we want to identify, select, and support officials to get into county offices at the school board, city council, county supervisor, all the county offices. Eventually we'd like to move into judges as well, and find people that support the Second Amendment, that will actively help us restore some of our rights, and then promote those people to try and get them elected and keep them elected and try and advance their careers. You know, I think our overall goal is we can't go beyond the county level offices. We have to strictly stay supporting local candidates or local officials. But our goal really is to get people that can move on to other offices where they can make a different kind of difference in our Second Amendment rights. So that's really who we are. We don't compete with the NRA. We don't compete with CRPA. We do something completely different. They focus on the state, national level. We focus strictly at the local level. So that's really what we're trying to accomplish. And you know, we do that through four things. I call them four pillars. We obviously do Second Amendment advocacy. We also do Second Amendment community organizing. That's kind of what we're doing right now. We're getting people together, and preferably in a one-on-one meeting environment at a local gun shop, gun club, those type of environments, and talk about what we can do to influence local politics to make a difference. And I think we have an excellent example already of that in the room here with Sheriff McMahon, because if he didn't have the position that he has had with Second Amendment and CCWs, our gun stores would be closed like Los Angeles. So it's really an important distinction that everybody makes a difference. So we focus on city councils and school boards because those are often stepping stones to be able to move on to these other offices. And nobody goes to Congress out of a bar, very rarely. So that's really what we want to do. We also want to do political fundraising. And then we do all this through the network of our gun shops and gun ranges to be able to build those relationships. We're really big on supporting the local gun shops. Both of our board members that own gun shops are not on the call tonight because they're still so swamped. They're finally getting to the point where they can actually give their employees some time off. So both of our gun shop owners are not going to be able to join us tonight. We're going to have a small group here, so we'll be able to stay more on topic, but I'd like to just ask that as much as we're able to, let's stay on topic of the Second Amendment and trying not get too distracted with COVID or other things. So let's try and stay as much as we can so we accomplish what we're here to do. May, we are planning on getting back into the game again. We've got an aggressive schedule. This will be emailed out to everybody. It'll be posted on our website tomorrow. But we have an aggressive schedule of meetings that we'll be doing using Facebook and this technology. We'll have to figure this out. It worked last time. It didn't work so well tonight. We also have a partnership with Firing Line Radio. And we will be broadcasting Firing Line Radio show on our website every week. Michael, any update on when that might get done? Still
I'm
waiting.
hoping that's going to start within the next week, at least before May 1st. We're going to have basically, as soon as it goes up on the website, it'll go up on San Bernardino's website as well as Riverside County's website. And so San Bernardino County gun owners, you'll be able to stream it, and then it'll go up on our Facebook page so that you'll be able to do it there, either or,
Okay.
as soon as it goes up. So it's a nice little feature.
Cool, cool. We are going to have monthly meetings for all 4 PACs. We'll be doing those once a month for the foreseeable future. And then we'll also be doing a San Bernardino meeting like this one. So there'll be 2 of those every month. We are also going to add a CCW seminar. That is scheduled for the May the 18th, and that'll be on how to go through the process of getting your CCW. And Sheriff, the CCW video that you saw that I cobbled together, that's being done professionally. So we're now about at the point, so it'll be done with a little bit more panache.
Yeah, it wasn't bad though.
It was yeah, it took 12 minutes to record it and about 4 hours to edit those 12 minutes.
Yeah. Got it.
That's the hard part. So we're working on that. We're going to have a private Zoom conference for our 10-ring members with one of our legislators. It was one of our meetings in February. Brian Jones will be leading that, and he'll be talking to us about what's going on in Sacramento. Monthly meeting will be on May 28th. And so we're getting back into the game. We're not going to let this inability to organize and recruit people get us stopped. Michael, do you want to kind of give an update from your perspective on what's going on and talk a little bit about the Second Amendment activist seminar?
Sure. So just to touch a little bit more on the schedule, you know, when all this happened in March, it was March and April, most of March and April anyway. There's been a lot of hurry up and wait. We weren't quite sure what to do. And we basically had to cancel every in-person event. And these organizations, by the way, I work for San Diego County gun owners, and I assist with county gun owners, Riverside County gun owners, and San Bernardino County gun owners. So Loren and I were talking to each other just about every day, kind of pulling our hair out, going, gosh, I guess we got to cancel everything and figure out exactly what to do here. And you know, we're kind of past that now. So that's the reason. So the month of May, there's going to be some kind of video interact almost every single night. Some in San Diego, some in Riverside, some in Orange, and some in San Bernardino. Definitely attend all the San Bernardino ones you can, but you're also welcome to go over to the other pages, you know, and do their events as well. So that's why with that. And there's just so much going on. There's an election coming up in November. We just decided that, hey, you know what? We can't afford to sit around and wait anymore. So let's take a big step towards getting back to normal. So we're not sure how June is going to go, but we know how May is going to go. And if things change, time June rolls around, then we're going to change with it. But there's a lot to do, so we wanted to get rolling. Some of the updates from around the county, Orange and Riverside have pretty much really been pretty okay. And both sheriffs are doing a really great job keeping their gun shops open and their firearms trainers training, and their licensing department issuing CCWs, as is our sheriff here on the call in San Bernardino. In a crisis like this, no matter how you see it, no matter how you see this crisis or what your opinion is of it or what angle you see it from, this is about as much as we can ask from a sheriff. And we're really proud of all of them for making sure that you got your CCWs, make sure that the gun shops stayed open. I think that they really did a fantastic job. San Diego was a little bit more of a fight. The sheriff didn't try to shut down the shops or CCWs exactly, but there was definitely some pressure and some conversations going on. You got a lot of pressure from two and probably three of the San Diego County supervisors who wanted to close down the shops. And two of the other ones were very supportive. And it was a nonpartisan effort to keep them open and a nonpartisan effort to shut them down too. So what I've learned in the years of fighting for the Second Amendment is this is not a Republican Democrat issue. It's really just a Second Amendment or not issue. So, but we've definitely been working hard in San Diego. And again, Orange County, Sheriff McMahon was talking about how busy they've been over in Orange County. Everybody's super busy. But the big message to the shops and ranges and instructors is keep it clean. And what they're really saying is they've kind of shifted from a product, what product are you selling, to more of a, hey, are you complying with health department standards? So if you go to a shop, if you go to a range, if you have to renew your CCW, whatever you're doing, just make sure that you're there to comply. They're doing their best to stay open. So make sure you stay 6 feet from everybody, wear your masks, do all the things they ask you to do. Don't pick a gun shop. Don't get a gun shop closed because you're trying to make a political statement about masks, about not wearing a mask or something like that. These gun shops may or may not agree with everything that's going on, but in order for them to stay open, they have to comply with the safety or with the health department of the county. And even President Trump isn't going to be able to save that. Even though he said, yeah, they're essential, we want them open. If the health department shuts them down for health violations, that's it. So all reports is everybody's been super cooperative though. So, probably preaching to the choir here about that. But if you could help us get that message out that the gun shops are doing their best. I just read that 2 million guns were sold in the month of March across the United States. And the gun shops that we're talking to are talking about 200, 300, 400% increase in sales. And they're talking about above 80% new buyer percentage, which means that at least 80% of the people that are buying a gun have never owned a firearm or don't currently own a firearm when they go in to buy. And the way they can really tell is, first, they're talking to them, but second is they have to go get the firearms safety card in order to purchase. So that's a big indicator. But an 80%, honestly, is kind of a conservative number. Most shops are saying it's more like 90%, but I think everybody's real comfortable with saying it's at least 80%. So that brings me to our efforts to reach out to these new gun owners. Of course, first, embrace them. It doesn't matter how they voted before or what they thought about guns before. One of the hardest things we do as activists is to get people over to our side of the fence. And once they're there, embrace them. They're your buddy. Make sure that he or she gets the training that they need, that they get their questions answered, and they feel welcome. The last thing we want to do is have somebody buy a firearm for any reason and then mock them because 2-3 years ago they didn't believe in firearms or that sort of thing. So what are the efforts on our part to reach out to these new shooters? We did a lot of thinking about that, and we wanted to make sure that we did two things. We wanted to make sure that our efforts actually reached new shooters. So we didn't want to make some kind of campaign or video or something and then share it, and the only people that saw it were you and me, and we already own a gun, so it doesn't really matter. So we had to figure out, how do we get outside of our bubble and get to new shooters? And the other thing we wanted to do is we didn't want to take away business from shops. So we didn't want to come up with a bunch of free resources where we were teaching and that was taking a customer out of a shop. We want to make sure that we partner with the customers or drive new shooters to these shops so that they can get professional help. We're a political organization. We focus just on Second Amendment issues, but we don't want to go into their area of expertise. So what we came up with is that we're going to have a page on our website that's dedicated to resources where new gun owners can find classes for new gun owners. And your part in that is just about every one of us either knows or is going to meet in the next year somebody who bought a gun in the last 6 weeks. They're a brand new gun owner. The COVID-19 thing started happening and they ran out. It could be your brother-in-law or the secretary at work or something. We're all going to run into that person. We all maybe already know that person. What your job is as an activist is to get them to that page and say, hey, you bought that gun. Congratulations. Excellent decision. Thank you so much. Now let me show you a list of resources. And if you want, why don't I help you go get the training that you need? Why don't I introduce you to Bob down at ABC Guns and see if that's the class you want to take for proficiency and that sort of thing, and help them along. Show them these resources, get them in front of them, and then help them into these classes and make sure that they get the education that they need. You know, my first firearm, it took me years to get formal education. Everything I learned from my dad, or just kind of reading a little bit here and there. And I was okay. You know, I knew the 4 rules ever since I got my Red Ryder when I was 10 years old. And those 4 rules are super valuable. But if there was one thing I could do over, I would go get professional instruction on a firearm, the day after I bought my firearm. So let's help these folks out and learn from, some mistakes that others have made, and make sure that we get them into the community.
Very good.
And back to Loren.
Very good. Well, I just want to introduce a couple people that we've had join us. We have 2 senators online with us today. Jay Obernolte, thank you very much for joining us today. And also Senator Mike Morrell, who I've known for many years now. Thank you for joining us, Mike.
Thank you.
I think what we'd like to do is just kind of do a panel discussion between the sheriff and Don Rowe. Don Rowe, I like your background. That's great. But, just kind of give us an update on what's going on in the county. And we want to try and focus on Second Amendment, but I know there's this thing begins with a C that's on everybody's mind. So Don, do you want to kind of touch off with that and start with that? And then Sheriff, you just jump in on anything that you feel is appropriate.
Sure. So thank you for having me tonight. I appreciate being here. The county is working hard to try to get us reopened. Today we sort of came out in defiance of part of the governor's orders, where we are allowing outdoor recreation to commence starting this weekend. And we'll have details come in tomorrow afternoon on what the specifics of that will look like. All sorts of challenges for that up here in the Morongo Basin, where we have the national park that brings a lot of visitors from Southern California and all over. If we open up our national park, what happens then? People are going to stay in hotels and short-term rentals, but there's no restaurants to eat. Our grocery stores are still pretty thin. So we have to be careful. I would love to have it all open, but then the locals will scream that we've done perhaps too much too fast. And not maybe from a health perspective, there is that consideration, but also just from an infrastructure sustainability side. So all those talks are taking place at the county. I believe all of your supervisors are interested in getting the county open and up and running as quickly as we can. The numbers don't seem to be there to justify keeping us closed for much longer, but yet we still run into the fact that we have a governor that doesn't necessarily see it that way. So a little bit of a balancing act in our liberties and our freedoms and how we can move forward effectively with the relationship that exists with the state. So that's a little bit of what's going on in terms of Second Amendment. I'll let our sheriff share the good news that he sees that gun stores are essential, and the Board of Supervisors agrees with him, and we are thankful for that. The zero bail thing is something that affects all of us in the county, and that's better to have the sheriff share his frustrations with that with you. But I can tell you that he's backed by all the supervisors and what he has to do in his mission. And we're just happy that we have gun stores that are considered essential and those that even have inventory to sell at this point. So happy to answer any questions, and I can do that after the sheriff or now, whichever is easiest.
Okay, why don't Sheriff, you go ahead, and then we'll go back to both of you to answer questions.
Great. Well, thanks for having us today. And it's always a pleasure to follow Dawn. She's a great partner, and we're thrilled to death that she got through the election in March and we're done. We don't have to worry about November. So she's a great team player, and I talk to her regularly and a true supporter of what we do every day. As you know, we're facing a number of little challenges as it relates to the closure and the jail issues and crime and all of that. But just to give you a basic summary of what's been going on, When this all started, the courts closed, or at least almost closed. There's still some courtrooms that are open partial times during the day for emergency proceedings. They're working closely with the DA and the public defender to get cases through, to get inmates arraigned that are in our custody and hear them on the warrants that maybe they're in custody on. Try to deliver that judicial process and get their cases adjudicated if at all possible. So we're working closely with them, but there is a level of concern to bring inmates out of the jail, number one, because if they're in the jail now and they've been in the jail for a period of time, chances of them getting the virus are pretty slim. So if we move them out or move them around anywhere to hospital or whatever it might be, the chances go up for them to catch the virus. And if they're just caught it and they're asymptomatic and they come back to the jail and start sharing it with the other inmates, then we have a significant problem. But we have only one inmate so far that has tested positive, and he's in isolation. He's halfway through his isolation period, mild symptoms being treated by our medical staff, and at some point in about another week or two, he'll be reunited with the other inmates. So all the inmates in our custody are wearing masks. All of our employees are wearing some type of face covering as well. The hope is that it doesn't spread within the jails, and some jails are seeing a high number of inmates with the virus, and unfortunately a high number of staff as well. We've been fortunate in that way so far. But then we moved to the zero bail issue, and that was a decision made by the Judicial Council. And I truly believe that their intent was to reduce jail populations in the state of California. There was a belief that if inmates stayed in custody, they're in a confined space, chances are good they're going to get the virus, they'll spread the virus, and all of that. Under normal circumstances, that may be the case, but we have inmates in our custody that have been there for a year, maybe 6 months, been in custody before the virus was even around and anybody knew about it. So the chances are very good that they're not going to get it, especially if they stay in their respective housing units. We're fortunate in our county that our jail population continues to decline, but we have a lot of bed space. Our county has 7,700 jail beds that are available, and our population now is under 4,900 today. So we can spread out the inmates, and that's a big concern for the prison law office, who, as you're probably aware, have sued us and other counties in the state for conditions of confinement. We're under a consent decree with the federal court. They mentioned to us they were concerned about the concentration of inmates, specifically in dormitory type settings. We explained to them, because of our population decline in our available beds, that we now have about a 60%, and it's falling every day, population rate in our dormitories. So in some cases, they're only half full. In some cases, slightly over half full. We're spreading out the inmates the best we possibly can to help control it, and delivering good medical care and screening inmates before they come into the facility, and a whole host of things that at this point seem to be working. But with the reduction in the courtrooms, we had a number of bailiff staff or court services staff that were available to redeploy. So early on in this process, we put them in uniforms, put them in patrol cars, and sent them out to all of our retail establishments. When we were seeing those long lines and potentially maybe folks that were a little bit agitated because they couldn't get what they wanted. And so this was just an extra level of security, and it was very, very well received. And so we'll continue to do that as long as the courts are in limited capacity, because we have extra deputies to do that. So overall crime is down, calls for service are down. Most people are staying home, they're complying voluntarily, but I'm beginning to see a level of frustration that folks are getting tired of staying home, and they complied. They were good sports in the beginning, but I think that we're getting pretty close to folks saying that's enough. Happy to answer any questions.
Very good. Where are you on the CCW program? I know that's been a concern with a lot of people, especially on renewals that are expiring.
Yeah.
CCWs.
Yeah, and that's a challenge. And as some of you may know, and I did not know until just recently, that when some of the laws change as it relates to CCWs, there's now a range requirement. There was not a range requirement a year ago. So our CCW holders renewed. We didn't require any range participation. We encouraged it. We hoped they would do it. The only time they had to go to the range and qualify was if they added a gun to their CCW. Now we know we have to comply with that. So that has caused us a bit of a challenge in this renewal period. it was very easy to do the classroom portion. We looked around and said, we can't have everybody come to a 100, 200, 300 person setting to hear the message. So we recorded a message. We sent it out. We had all the renewal candidates sign an attestation saying they watched the video, send it back in with their fees. And that would be just fine, except we can't comply with the range portion at this point. So everybody's renewed to the point where they paid their fees. They watched the video. Now we're just waiting, and I think it's going to happen fairly soon for them to go to the range and complete the process. But originally we were told by Cal DOJ, there is no, and I believe that's just still true, there is no way to extend the renewal period. However, their intent was to just have somebody start the process over if they didn't get renewed in time. I don't agree with that. So there's a way we can stretch that out and not have people start all over again. But we got to get them to the range as soon as we can. And I think we could probably pull that off in the next month or less.
Okay.
And then my hope is that, maybe in a couple of months, we'll get back to where we were before and offering the classroom portion in large scale venues like we were doing. So we'll see where that goes. But and you and I've had this conversation, Loren, but there's going to be a point where we're going to outsource some of that as well. And the range portion, we're going to have to outsource. We just can't accomplish that in-house. We just don't have enough folks to do that.
CCWs are you up to now?
It's about 10,500. I haven't seen the number recently, but it was 10,500 something not too long ago.
So you've got about 450 renewals every month then.
Yeah. So I always say that, we got about 5,000 people that got to come see us every year.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Very good. Very good. Does anybody have any questions? If you have a question, just unmute yourself and speak.
Loren,
up.
I got a question.
Yeah, Rick.
Sheriff, is there any, I know we've talked on this before, but anything in the works on making the CCWs longer in terms of the permits, a 3-year, 4-year, whatever?
That's a great question. And I, as you probably know, I speak to the renewal classes every chance I get, and I get that question pretty regularly. And there was, I think it's been 2, maybe 3 years ago now, there was a piece of legislation introduced in the state assembly to change it from 2 years to 5 years. I thought it was a great idea. I stopped by and talked to the author. I even wrote a letter of support, but that piece of legislation died in the first committee. So I don't think that we're going to see any movement as it relates to the renewal period. My argument is that, if one of our CCW holders gets arrested or gets in trouble, we're going to know about it. Number one, they're probably going to call us. And if they don't, we still get notified automatically through DOJ. And so I don't know what the drawback would be to extending it from 2 to 5 years. And I think it's all positive from the CCW holders' perspective and certainly from ours. It's not that I don't want to see 5,000 people every year, but I'd rather not see 5,000 people every year and give our folks a bit of a break.
It would certainly make your load a lot easier.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And they don't have to pay their fees once every 5 years as opposed to every 2.
Yeah.
Just don't know that there's an appetite in Sacramento for that.
Jay or Mike, do you have any comments on that?
So I think I agree with Sheriff McMahon. I would love to be able to vote for or even be able to introduce legislation that would extend the CCW period. But the atmosphere in Sacramento over the last couple of years has been so anti-Second Amendment that anything that we try to do immediately runs into a roadblock. I had a bill that I introduced this year on behalf of the city of Needles that would just exercise reciprocity with CCW carriers from neighboring states. And even that, I mean, basic common sense, even that was going to have what we call a heavy lift, a real uphill battle to get past. So yeah, it's unfortunate that the environment's not better.
My 2 cents, are a couple of things. Appreciate this group. One of the reasons we have the Second Amendment isn't just to protect our loved ones, but it's to keep government from becoming a despotism, And so just so you kind of understand what's happening up in Sacramento, because I do get constituents ask me a lot, Don't those people up there have any common sense? Here's what I'd like you to know. Many of them, and I don't know, education, I think, has become more about social indoctrination than it has actually, learning. And so many of these people, I am convinced, based on not a Republican accusation, but based on their votes, their floor speeches they give, and the bills they author, many of them seem to have embraced political ideologies of Marxism over those of Lincoln, Washington. And even our Governor Newsom, a few days ago, if you guys remember, he said he will use this crisis move ahead his progressive agenda. Do you guys recall that? You do recall that.
Yep.
And progressivism is just a kind word for socialism, guys. And so there's going to be more of this. I think we have to ante up this group and what we do on defending our Second Amendment rights, because they are going to go away, and they don't appreciate the Second Amendment. They don't even understand why it's there to protect us. So there's a lot of work to do, because everybody on this call is older than 20 years old, and so those are concerns that I have as a person who values freedom, not just for me, but for future generations. I got a vested interest now with 7 grandkids, and I do care about their future. So again, thank you for the group. Sheriff, thank you guys for what you've done. Don, thank you. But there's just a lot of work to be done. We have to make the case and persuade a lot of voters, including that younger generation coming up, why the Second Amendment is needed to preserve our freedom. And unfortunately, as you guys know, a lot of those younger people are embracing socialism, because I know they don't fully understand that. But that requires us, like Jay does. Jay and I are always out there trying to make the case on things like the Second Amendment and amongst other things. So that's my 2 cents. Thank you guys for listening, and thank you, Loren, for getting this going.
Very good.
Sheriff, a quick question. Kay and I are renewing our CCWs, and we got that death call. Everything's done except the range.
Right.
When they do start it back up, will we have some kind of preference for?
Oh, yeah. You guys will be put at the front. And
we'll pass our date, so we will then not be able to carry at that point. So
you'll have all your paperwork done. You've already watched the video, so you'll be first in line with a group of folks to get right to the range. And my wife is one of them as well. So she's done everything she needs to do, but she still needs to go to the range.
Yeah, great, thank you.
And we were all set to do the range, as you probably all know, and then they tightened the restrictions even more right just before we were ready to pull the trigger, and we couldn't in good conscience pull the trigger and do it.
Great.
I know there's been some license extensions that have been granted for some professional licenses. Mike, Jay, is there any possibility that this could be, I think those were done by executive order. Is there any possibility of getting CCWs in on the next go around of those with the governor?
Well, the state of occupational licensing in general is completely in disarray in California. And I think really what we need is some kind of holistic solution in the form of an executive order that deals with all of them, because it's not just CCW owners that are having this problem. It's anybody that's got a licensure requirement that's coming up that they can't fulfill. And I mean, we've got students like medical students coming out of school, dental students that need to take their licensing exam that are unable to, and so they're unable to practice. They've got this very expensive education, unable to do anything with it. So it's not just CCW owners. I'm hopeful that perhaps the governor is going to see the light here and come out with a comprehensive executive order on that. But he certainly is aware of the problem. We've made him aware of it.
Don, you mentioned earlier about the county kind of pushing back on the state. What is the appetite of the county if I've got to be honest, when I listened to Newsom's broadcast today, it was not encouraging. It looked like months to me rather than weeks.
So I was actually going to consider asking Senator Morrell and Assemblyman Obernolte that question. So what happens to us if we just choose to defy the order that the governor has given. And if we start to open up some of those non-essential businesses, and I know that we potentially have funding at risk, we expose ourselves to liability with constituents that perhaps could, if they got sick in one of those capacities, could then come back and sue the county. So I guess I'm curious, what rights do we have as a county to push back on that, the governor's order? So maybe one of the two gentlemen from the state can help us understand, because I know that the supervisors are very, very anxious to get things open, because our hospitals, with the exception of our skilled nursing facilities, our hospitals have capacity, and they are, they never saw the influx of patients that they thought they might have, which is a blessing. But our tests are coming back, our positive rates are dropping, and so we're looking to get open, but without that governor's blessing, we can't do that. So curious to know what the ramifications might be if we were to continue to sort of push back and defy that order.
I'll take a stab at it. If you saw the governor's press conference yesterday, he made it clear that states were allowed to relax restrictions as long as they didn't relax them beyond the minimum that the state has specified. Now, interestingly, the state's restrictions are on very questionable legal ground for a couple of different reasons. You know, first of all, it's not at all clear that the state health department has the constitutional right to quarantine healthy people. You know, it's pretty clear that they can quarantine the ill, but people that aren't showing symptoms, it's not clear at all that they can quarantine them. And then if you look deeper than that, and you look at some of the restrictions that have been put on things like travel and the right to assemble, you know, those are things that the courts have ruled can only be overridden in very narrowly tailored set of circumstances and only in the least restrictive way. And it's pretty clear that restricting someone's right to assemble and doing it in a blanket way across the entire state is not the least restrictive way. So, I mean, there are going to be lawsuits on this. I think Harmeet Dillon has just filed one this week challenging a couple of the things that the governor has done. So it's going to be very interesting to see that. There was a demonstration that you probably saw in the news. I was actually up there in Sacramento on Monday, and there was a demonstration at the state capitol where a couple of hundred people were demonstrating to lift the stay-at-home order. And everyone in Sacramento got all a Twitter pointing fingers at each other afterwards, talking about why a demonstration permit was issued to that group. And it kind of makes me laugh, because I think if they had denied a demonstration permit to a group of people that wanted to assemble in front of their state capitol to petition for redress of their grievances, that would have drawn an immediate constitutional challenge, and the state would have lost. So I think the state's on very shaky legal ground there. I would, you know, certainly work with your county council, but also you might work with other counties. I know that there are counties out there, the ones that have relaxed restrictions that kind of drew the governor's ire yesterday, you know, that are kind of testing the waters. So I would encourage you to talk to those counties and see what they're doing. Also, I think it's always better if we can make our argument data-driven and science-driven. And I think there is a scientifically driven and data-driven argument that we in San Bernardino County can see our way to lifting some restrictions. I think that that's a lot harder to argue with.
Okay, and for my commentary, I've been on a few conference calls with the governor and other Republicans, as well as the governor's office, a number of times. And we've tried pinning him and them down on a time. You know, he's not going to give us a time frame. But if you do have other counties, you know, where there's more of you that are willing to take the state on, again, there's safety in numbers. But the other thing too, this thing about science and the models. If you remember the first estimate, and I looked this up today, they said we would probably lose 2.2 million people, and then they downgraded it to 1 million people, and then it was 500,000, and then 200,000, then 100, then 60, and so the thing is if we do follow the science models, they've been off by 95% on this thing, And so, but I think on the flip side of the coin, there is a case to be made on legitimate science that that there's a case here that maybe we're past the worst. But that's going to be a decision you guys have to make. I'd love to see people step up if something doesn't happen within the next week or two, because this economic climate. Remember, we're going to have a banking crisis because we're deferring student loans. Eventually, people are going to be foreclosed on. Right now, they're going into forbearance if they've got a problem. They've lost their jobs. You've got a lot of small businesses that lost their jobs. Stock market's fallen more as a percentage, and I think the depression and, of course, unemployment as a depression has fallen too. So, I mean, there's just so many things. I think, I've heard some pretty smart people who possess a superior wisdom to me economically thinks that, could possibly be on a verge of a depression. And again, we have a governor that that is, for all intents and purposes, he's a progressive. And I think our constitutional rights are at stake. I think there's a lot more here at stake than just our health, but our freedoms and our health, as well as our freedoms and our economic viability over the next few years. So that's a tough call, but the 57 or 56 signers of the Constitution took a lot of risk, and they did lose. But we ended up with a great country and counted people that were. Reagan said this one thing, and I'll close with this. I love this comment. He told the people enslaved in communism, he says, it's better to die on your feet than have to live on your knees to your slave masters. So I'll leave it there. Thank you, Don.
Don, anything else you'd like to share?
No, it's just really a little bit, there's an added dimension of complexity when you factor in that the federal government that has jurisdiction in some of its areas here, like our national park, the Bureau of Land Management, and those has a different time frame and different orders than our governor. And so that really, we interface with the federal government in over 80% of our land in the county. And that creates some interesting and unique challenges. And I know that Assemblyman Obernolte has constituents in the mountains that will lose their mind if we start restricting or like limiting some of the liberties up there, but not all of them. And they don't have enough in their grocery stores, and to sustain visitors on top of that, whether it's for snow play or now as we're opening up into lake season. So it is really, really challenging when the forest trails are still open and we're encouraging people to go to the mountains and get exercise. And our president has one particular way that he's ordering things. So please know that it's just not as simple as we would just like to open it right back up. But it is definitely a complex situation that is requiring us to push back. And hopefully with the help of our state legislators, they can put a little pressure on the governor to see fit to allow us out here in a more rural area to open back up and not be beholden to the same rules and standards as the more densely populated areas. So thank you for the opportunity tonight to join you.
Very good. It's Sheriff, do you have any other comments or questions? Is there anything we can do to help you in your job?
You guys give so much support to law enforcement across the county, and we all know it, and we truly appreciate it. I think the zero bail thing we're going to work through. I think the Judicial Council understands the things that were missing or maybe were omitted on accident, and I think that will get repaired. But I think what's important for folks to know is that this county is unusual in a way that everybody works so well together. All the department heads work well together. The CEO, the board, the four independently elected officials as well. This is a big team effort. Nobody has any ego. We all have a common goal of being successful. So know that you're in good hands. I'm on conference calls with the county officials every day. I'm truly impressed with the work that's being done, understanding that we've not done this before and there's going to be mistakes that are made. Our staff is writing down all the things that we're doing, both good and bad, so that when we deal with this again, because chances are good we'll know what worked and what didn't work, so we don't repeat our mistakes with any luck at all. And so I truly believe we're in great hands in the county, and We got great leadership. The board's supportive of all of the activities that are going on, and it's truly an honor to be part of this team. It's great.
Very good.
If I could ask a couple of questions.
Yeah.
And this is more for Senator Morrell and Assemblyman. The task force that the governor has put together about reopening the state. It seems like he's running out with his own plan, but yet he's identified this task force. And Gray Davis was on a radio show recently, and he actually sounded, he's more in line with us right now. But Gray Davis and Pete Wilson and some of those folks are on this task force. What do you anticipate coming out of this, and when do you anticipate a legitimate plan? Because a lot of states have already worked through this. So do you think this task force is actually going to come up with a plan that this governor will follow through with, or is he just going to do what he wants to do? And then the second part is, and Supervisor Rowe was talking about some of the frustrations at the federal level. Do you think any of the things that are going on now in this state and the frustration with the state government has risen to the federal level that the Attorney General Barr is going to be looking at our state for some unconstitutional practices that our state is engaged in? Has it risen to that level as far as you're concerned? Anybody take a shot at it? So,
I guess I'll jump in. So the task force, I think, is a little bit of a misnomer, because I think people are thinking that the task force is trying to work towards getting California reopened. And that is not the purpose of the task force, first of all. That's going to be a Department of Healthcare Services decision. And the task force is supposed to be getting the economy rolling once the state is reopened. So, having said that, the state of California has a long history of appointing task forces that did nothing. And unfortunately, I think that's going to be the case with this task force. There are just too many people on it. They can't meet in person, so they're having to meet remotely. And I just don't see a lot coming out of the task force. And one other thing to talk about when you talk about the state's economic recovery is the fact that our Constitution requires our state to have a balanced budget every year. Thank goodness. That's not obviously the case with the federal government, but at the state level, we are not allowed to deficit spend. So we can use reserve dollars to shore up state finances in years when our revenues drop, but we are not allowed to systemically run a deficit, and we are not allowed to deficit borrow. So that really limits what the state can do in recovering from a recession. I've had a lot of constituents ask me about maybe a state stimulus plan for small businesses or things like that. There is just not the money for anything like that. So I think what you're going to see from the task force is a bunch of just common sense recommendations on, I already mentioned occupational licensing, but business restrictions. Hopefully they'll touch on AB5, the bill that's making it so difficult to be an independent contractor in California this year. Hopefully they'll talk about some of the really business unfriendly things that the legislature and the governor have done in the last few years. So hopefully we'll get kind of an action item list from them along those lines, but don't expect miracles just because there isn't a whole lot that they can do.
Hey, I'll say a few words. Morrell here, a couple of things I'm reading who's on the task force. Tom Steyer, he's one of the co-chairs, you guys know who he is. No, yeah, Tom Steyer, really a nice guy. Again, sort of leans very, very left. And there's other names on here which I won't name, and I won't say Tom Steyer is one of them, but you've got a person here who's on the EPA. I mean, you've got people that are in government. Jared Blumfield, Secretary of the California Environmental Protection Agency. So, you've got some bureaucrats on here, number one. The second thing is there are a number of people that remember he must have 60 or 80 people on this list. But, you know, there's a lot of companies and people that make their money off of government, you see. And so they like the expansion of the bureaucratic state. They get their contracts from government and that type of thing, you know. And so he has a number of those types of people on there. So just because they're under the heading of business doesn't always mean that they're free economic, you know, levers of economic freedom. I always prefer small and mid-sized businesses, and am cautious about, you know, the large international businesses. So I'll send this list to you, Loren, who's on there, and then if you want to distribute it to everybody tonight, you can, and then they can look up some of these people, and I think that'll give you a picture, perhaps, where we're going. There's some good people on this list, though, too. And I don't know everybody on this list, so there could be more better than the other way. But I'm cautious, again, about these decisions that are coming from Sacramento. Thank you, guys, very much.
Very good. So I know I talked to Dawn last week, and her 10 to 12-hour days have now turned into 14 to 16-hour days. So, and Sheriff, I'm sure yours is probably about the same. So if there's any questions for Dawn or Sheriff, let's throw them out there right now so they can get on and start working on their emails or whatever else they need to do tonight.
I have a question for the sheriff.
Yeah, Doug.
Hey, John, if the NRA got involved with some of this range requirements, would that help you out at all? We have range masters.
Yeah, I think it's just simply going to be a shortage of facilities. So we won't be able to run all 10,500 CCW holders through our range, as well as the new one. So we're going to have to outsource for the range, and we'll just find vendors that we believe are the appropriate folks that are trustworthy, and then we'll rely on them to do the required every 2-year range training, and then provide us with certification that that particular person has completed it. Other counties do that. Other counties outsource it, and so that's what ultimately we'll have to do.
Very good.
And that's what you need to do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Michael, any questions before we let them?
No, I can't tell you how much I appreciate everybody's involvement. This is very, very cool, and what a valuable and great discussion. I really enjoyed hearing all the insight. This is really amazing.
Very good. And I would like to throw out too, before Dawn leaves, she is a member of San Bernardino County Gun Owners.
Oh.
So, so she's not here just as a political person. She's also a member. So thank you very much. And Sheriff, you can join too.
All right. I take that as a challenge.
But thank you very much. We'll everybody will just stick on with us. We'll kind of move on to some of our other business. And you guys, thank you very much for coming. You're welcome to stay if you'd like, but don't have to.
Thanks for having us,
All right.
Loren.
Yep.
Make sure
Thank
you
you.
reach out for any meeting that you have. Reach out, and if we can be on, I think we'd all like to be.
Yeah, I apologize for the technical problem, but we'll get it fixed.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. Stay healthy.
So I just kind of wanted to go over some of the accomplishments we've made in the last month to try and bring everybody up to speed. We did get a CCW video out. It's had over 2,000 views. So there's a lot of appetite for that information. We'll have a professionally edited version and professionally filmed version here in the next week or so, 10 days, but we wanted to get some information out there. We did put a yes, no carry guide on our website, which is very useful for a quick reference on where you can carry and where you can't carry with a CCW. We've done a lot of work on breaking news. We broke the news on the DHS designation of gun stores and ranges being essential. We were the first to the news in California with that, I believe. We broke the news on the dross problem and the mask issues which came up with people that are CCW holders. Michael touched on the volume that all the gun stores have seen. It's just been phenomenal. I have heard it's back down just slightly So they're now actually able to give people time off. And it's the first time since all this started, beginning of March, that they've been able to do that. So they backed off a little bit. But again, what Michael said about 80 to 90% of these buyers are new buyers. So there's going to be a lot of need for training, resources, and teaching these people how to use them safely, and bring them into that culture. So it's really important. I wanted to also reinforce, some of the outreach we've been doing. We've got an agreement with Turner's Outdoors for all 4 counties in Southern California. They're going to make a video screen available in all their stores to broadcast our message for potential gun buyers about what our mission is and what we do. That's pretty unique for them. They don't get involved in political discussions usually, but because we're political and nonpartisan, they're all in with it. They will also allow us to go into their stores, set up tables, and explain who we are and what we're about. And so that's a big plus. We've been with ongoing talks with 3 gun ranges, gun clubs, Apple Valley, West End Gun Club, and High Desert Rod and Gun Club. They're all ready to have us come in and start talking to their members about signing them up. So big opportunities there, being able to bring more people into the community that are focused on our same mission. Firing line radio, I mentioned that earlier. There's just been a lot of stuff going on. We also had a request today from somebody that was requesting firearms legal counsel, and we have a list of 5 attorneys. We hope nobody needs them, but we gave it out today, and the person was very grateful. So if anybody needs a good firearms attorney, we have 4 of them. We'll be glad to send that out to anybody that needs it.
Can I say just a couple words?
Yeah, Michael.
So if you're anything like me, you think that, hey, I follow all the laws, I'm probably never going to need a firearms attorney. I got to tell you, in the last 4.5 years from running the various organizations and getting them up and running, I get a ton of requests from gun owners who never thought it would happen to them for attorneys, and it's never straightforward. A lot of them are divorce related. It's never a matter of, it's rarely a matter of, hey, they were doing something stupid, and then and so they kind of deserve to get caught with a gun in the wrong configuration or doing something with a firearm. It really is more often than not, somebody was doing something normal, some kind of normal activity in their life, and then the next thing they know, they need an attorney for some ridiculous nuance or something like that. So I do want to encourage everybody to, first off, I don't know how this is going to sound. Don't push the envelope. And if you do, don't be surprised. Nobody here is immune. They really are enforcing a lot of these laws, and that's every level of law enforcement. I was in a meeting about a month ago with ATF. They want to start enforcing California gun laws by using federal law, which is, we're going to talk a lot more about that, but it's pretty scary. But the other thing is, look into some of these legal services, like these prepaid legal services, like U.S. Law Shield or USCCA or Firearms Legal Protection. Those are the 3 that we've looked into, and we like them. They all have their pluses and minuses. But please don't think you're immune. Don't think it's not going to happen to you. 10 or 20 or however much their fee is per month now is going to seem like nothing compared to $100,000 in legal fees. I really am just shocked at how often somebody contacts me and said, I had no idea, or I was just doing this, or this happened, and next thing I know, I'm in cuffs, and some aggressive district attorney or city attorney is now going after everything I've ever loved in life, and it's really sad and it's really scary sometimes. But please, be prepared for that. Check out either, like I said, USCCA, US Law Shield, or Firearms Legal Protection, or if you find one that you like better, great. But I just highly encourage everybody to sign up for one of these.
Very good. Very well put. And we will be bringing some of those people back when we have the in-store meetings. We'll be bringing in some of these protection services. US Law Shield, we've been in contact already. They were going to come to our next meeting. So we'll probably have them come out for that one, and then we'll just keep bringing them out. So you have a choice. I mentioned earlier, I don't think everybody was in here, we did change our political questionnaire process, and we're going out to political officials and also candidates when we get to that point in the election cycle. But we changed the way that we're asking people to respond. If they fail to respond, it used to be they just stayed in the middle column, the undecided column. And we're now taking, if they don't respond, they're going into the thumbs down column, because we figured they opened up the survey and looked at it and they've said, no, I'm not answering this. So we're going to put them over on that side, and then if they want to prove that we made a mistake, then we'll fix it. But that way they are kind of being pushed into responding to us. I did want to touch on a couple of the legal issues that have been going on. The Duncan Becerra case that was on the magazine ban. I watched that hour-long appeals hearing. I thought it went very well. Hopefully that decision will be rendered here in the next week. I don't know what the effect will be. I have a feeling it's going to be positive, but I have a feeling it's going to be immediately appealed to the en banc hearing. So we're probably not done, but who knows if they're going to, if the injunction will be dropped, and that will go back to Freedom Week. So we'll see, but we'll stay in touch with you on. Nothing else in the state is really going on. 3071, the lead bill, is dead, at least for right now. It'll probably come back next year, but they have withdrawn it. 3058, the firearm storage bill we talked about before, and the microstamping revision. Both of those are still on the legislative calendar, so they may bring those up at any time in the future when they come back to Sacramento. I just want to reinforce that our mission is to find and get Second Amendment friendly candidates elected. And it doesn't matter whether we do that at the city level, the school board level, the water district. It doesn't matter where people start. But if you know of somebody that's been interested in getting involved in politics, they've got a Second Amendment focus, get a hold of me. Jan is a great political resource for us, and we can get them the training and get them involved. And for God's sake, if one of you is interested, get a hold of me, and we'll try and get you in the mill, because that's what we need. That's what we need to do if we're going to change some of these problems we've been talking about with Sacramento. And it's every state. You can't run from it. Michael, did you have anything else you wanted to say on the legal front or on the?
Yeah, can I just touch on? There's also Miller versus Becerra.
Yeah.
Duncan versus Becerra. The decision was that, yeah, of course, a magazine's a crucial part of a gun. Therefore, it's protected by the Second Amendment. And there was an injunction, and they're waiting, for a final decision on that. But that was the most recent decision, which is why you're able to have your normal capacity magazines right now. Well, Firearms Policy Coalition filed a case where San Diego County Gun Owners is a plaintiff. Basically, the case is built on this. If the courts think that a magazine is protected by the Second Amendment, which is what the current decision is, then putting that magazine into a firearm can't be illegal. that's kind of the gist of the reasoning. And what that means is if your firearm, especially your AR pattern rifle is in a certain configuration, if you put a 30-round magazine in it, then it's considered illegal in California in certain situations, in most situations. So the Miller versus Becerra is hoping to get rid of the assault weapons ban in California built on the Duncan versus Becerra decision. So hopefully all this goes our way and goes smoothly. But I think Loren's right. It's a long road to hoe. There's a lot of appeals, and there's still a lot ahead of us. So we're going to leave that up to the attorneys and continue to do activism. But hopefully it'll go our way.
Very good. Very good. Well, I told you we've had some substantial growth. We've had 150 people that have liked us on Facebook this month. So that's a huge increase. We're up to over 800 followers now. And it was going up all day. Probably after this failed Facebook live session tonight, it'll probably go down tomorrow. But we'll keep fighting the fight. We have actually had on our website, which has got a lot of material on it. If you have not gone to our website, you should check it out. There's a lot of material. There's a lot of information there. We had one day where we had 750 users in one day. Article that Santiago's letter to the state, to the governor, and then his response. So that was a real big growth day, and the website has been going up steadily. We're now up to 69 members. So thank you very much for the people that joined today. We had 3 that joined today. We do have the contest running till the end of the month. If anybody joins this month, they have a chance to win a front site membership, and they're the good membership. Michael got us the Commodore memberships, so they're actually the really good ones. So those are available for anybody that joins. If you know anybody that's been thinking about it or wants to make a difference, please ask them to check us out. Share our posts. If you see something you like, share it with your friends. And don't try and pick the ones that are gun lovers. You share them with everybody, because it's just like all these people that just bought new guns that have never had a gun before. Those are the people we need to reach, people. You know, we need to reach some of those people. We need to get incremental share of the crowd. And that's where we need to go. So share it with all your friends if it's of interest. We do have merchandise that's available online. If anybody wants any of these cool shirts or hats or any of those are available online. You know, it's just it's a difficult time for us, but out of adversity rises success. And when we come out of this, we're going to be stronger than ever. And we just got to make sure that we just don't lose any ground over the next month here. So April was a month to reposition and reconnect, and we just got to hit it really strong in May. Rick, I saw your...
Yeah, Mike, what is the legality on the high capacity mags right now in California? Is there still a 10-round mag limit right now, or I'm a little confused about this or whatever.
Good question. It is a little confusing. First, I'm not an attorney, and this is not legal advice, and you're responsible for knowing all the laws in your area. This is disclosure. But the gist of it is this. It is illegal to buy. It is illegal to sell them within the state. It is illegal to import them, but it is not illegal to use them. It's not illegal to possess them. So you can't buy one. You can't go to the store and buy one. You can't buy one from your friend. You can't sell one in California. You can sell it to somebody out of state if that's what you want to do, but I recommend you don't do that. You can't import them, so you can't buy them or have somebody send them to you from out of state. But if you own them currently, there's an injunction against the law that makes it illegal for you to possess them. You can use them. You can possess them. You can use them in your carry gun. If you have a CCW, if you have a Glock 19 with a 15-round mag, you can do that. You can take them to the range. All that other good stuff. Now, there's one really, really gray area that people have very convincing arguments on both sides, and that is, say you have a 15-round magazine. Like, for example, when I went to Front Sight, a couple months ago now, I have 15-round magazines for my Glock 19. I went and bought 10-round magazines, took them to Nevada, and brought them back because I'm not completely and totally convinced that it's legal for you to take your 15-round magazine to Nevada and then bring it back with you to California. Some people say that, yep, that's legal. That's not importing. You just possess it and walked over a state line. That's legal. But some people say, nope, that's importing. Once you take it out of Nevada, you cannot bring it, or out of California, you cannot bring it back. Mm-hmm. So that's the only real gray area. But other than that, you can possess it and you can use it. Did that make sense? Do you have any questions on that?
Yeah, like when we were at Front Sight, a couple of years ago, they had that judge that overturned the high capacity mag limitations, and I think they referred to it as Freedom Week, and where we could buy the 17-round mags or 30-round mags or whatever. And my understanding is that we bought them in that time period, they were legal to own.
You're exactly right. If they're legal to own and possess, right, if you bought it during that time period. You're exactly right. A lot of the normal capacity magazines I've owned since before the ban, but then during Freedom Week, I was itching to buy something. I wanted to participate too, so I went and got a 60-round mag pull drum for my AR, and that is totally legal to possess. It's legal to use, so you're good to go.
Cool. Okay.
Very good. And I did talk to the sheriff about that, one of my meetings with him, and he said, Loren, the laws are so confused right now that I've just told all my officers not to enforce any laws that pertain to magazine bans in San Bernardino County, because we don't know. We don't have any clear understanding of how to enforce that law. So we just told them to stay away from it. Doesn't help you in the city of Redlands or the city of Barstow, but that's the sheriff's position.
Hey, Loren, I've got to sign off now. It was a great meeting.
Thank you very much, Jan. Appreciate it.
All right. Take care. Bye-bye. Everybody be safe.
You too, Jan.
Thanks, Jan. Take care.
Bye,
So
Jay.
with that, does anybody else have any questions?
Yeah, Loren, I have a question that might be interesting. As the board members, have we thought about a meeting with other of the group's boards or as a overall capacity and brainstorm?
Great idea. Michael, has that been talked about at all? Michael?
I don't know. It looks like he froze.
Yeah.
Went to sleep.
He's dead asleep.
With his eyes open.
Okay, I'll make a note of that. I don't think we're going to wake Michael up. I think we went past the 8:30 meeting time, so I think he's out. Technology. Oh my gosh.
One other thing, Loren.
I'm going to die for real meetings again.
One other thing. Where are we standing on that Second Amendment program for?
Great question. Glad you asked. So we have rescheduled it. We have rescheduled it with the Elks. It's going to be at the same Elks in Riverside, and it's going to be on June the 6th. It's I've seen Michael's agenda for it. It's a fantastic program. I've told some other political people that I've been going to some Republican fundraising events in February and March, And there's a lot of them that want to go because it's how to be an activist, it's how to get things to happen, you know, how to apply the principles of people and money to affect change. And so it's really, really good. He will have a guest speaker for our event. It hasn't been picked yet on who he's going to have come in and talk, but it'll be somebody that will really be able to tell you how to make a difference. You know, as a kind of a primer, everybody's got some TV time this month, right? So, you know, if you want to get a head start on understanding what it is to be an activist, Michael uses several movies that he recommends that you watch. And one of them is Milk, the story of Harvey Milk, and how he made activism work in San Francisco. Another one was Selma from the South in the 60s. Great, great story. Gandhi was the third one. And then the fourth one, I can't recall right off the top of my head. But they're great movies. I'll put that list out on the website so you can see that. But it's going to be a phenomenal program. It's going to be a little under $20 to go, and that's just basically to cover the lunch. So, any other questions on that?
And I'll get a hold of you on some of these other things later.
Okay, great. Very good. Thank you very much, everybody, for coming. It's been a tough month, but there's going to be brighter times ahead. So, thank you and have a great night.
Without someone doing something about it, it's not going to get any better.